Yes, this is the one video we were always going to make, and it's the one conversation surrounding the Outer Worlds that feels the most obvious. Is Obsidian's return to late 2000s RPGs better than the monolithic Fallout 4? Bethesda's last great release before they fell off a frickin' cliff into a pit of microtransactions and monthly fees for broken games? Well, the answer is a resounding hell yes, at least from me. Back when Fallout 4 released in 2015, it garnered good reviews and amazing sales, but several concerns were raised about how much of an RPG the game actually was. Besides detractors labeling it Fallout 3.5 and kinda having a point, the years since haven't exactly been kind to either Fallout or Bethesda. Fallout 4 still stands out as a solid recommendable game in the genre, but it's pretty obvious that it could have and should have been so much better. Now that original Fallout creators Tim Kaine and Leonard Boyarsky are with Obsidian, and after Boyarsky noted that the sale of the Fallout IP to Bethesda was like losing a child to the highest bidder, it's clear that they wanted to make a statement with the Outer Worlds. Thankfully, that's something Fallout fans and newcomers alike need to see and hear. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and this is The Outer Worlds, 10 reasons it's better than Fallout 4. Number 10, it's not a buggy mess. Bethesda bugs are not as cute as we all used to think. Thankfully, Obsidian's focus on a smaller experience means that the Outer Worlds very rarely has any bugs at all. There's occasional clipping and UI issues, but there's nothing that makes turning the game off ever feel necessary. When you compare this level of polish to how Fallout 4 launched, and indeed how every single Bethesda RPG launches today, it's pretty laughable. Just because a game is big doesn't mean that it can't be polished. Texture issues, crashes, saves being deleted, and much more plagued Fallout 4 upon release, and none of those issues ever seem to be actively worked on. It's not like any of these games are massively graphically intense either, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense why we keep putting up with Bethesda's lack of quality control. Granted, this is a long-standing problem with all of Bethesda's games, but it's got to the point where something needs to change. Thankfully, Outer Worlds from moment one launched in a far better state than Fallout 4. Number 9, varied and memorable locations. With more than just one planet at its disposal, it's no surprise that the Outer Worlds has more varied locations. Although there are technically only 2 planets in the game, there are a range of different areas as well, such as a massive docked ship and a moon. The range of locations helps to keep everything fresh, even if they're kept to a fairly compact size. It also helps that this is all completely brand new content. We've never seen anything from the world of Halcyon, and even a space theme in general is fairly unexplored territory for a first-person RPG. Vaults and wastelands are awesome, but they're also kinda old hat, losing their luster over time thanks to being repeatedly turned out with little to differentiate. If a sequel to this game could build on these worlds and make them even more detailed, Halcyon could easily become a standout gaming location. Fallout may be bigger, but that doesn't mean it's better. Number 8, reliable companions and solid AI changes everything. Companions are a staple of role-playing games, but they're done so well in the Outer Worlds, it feels like a real standout quality. Not only do companions have their own unique combat abilities for you to use, but they're also very active in the game world. They'll constantly tell you bits of lore regarding the world and themselves, and get involved during quest conversations. These combat abilities are actually pretty helpful too, and they're one of the elements that help spice up what is otherwise a fairly standard traditional system. You'll genuinely want to finish Parvati, Felix, and Vicar Max's quests before the game ends, and that's quite the thing for what are essentially just side quests. It's reminiscent of Mass Effect, where you actually want to bring together this ragtag group of adventurers, in turn enhancing the satisfaction of the wider narrative. Now, don't get me wrong, of course Fallout 4 had some memorable companions, but the way the Outer Worlds implements them in gameplay and story makes the whole thing feel like a breath of fresh air. Number 7, perks and flaws. The Outer Worlds gives you 3 different tiers of perks across your adventure, and although there are a few stat adjustments along the way, you'll find yourself comparing builds with other players, something that we never did in Fallout 4. Flaws help mix things up as well. Dying or taking damage from a specific element will give you the ability to take a flaw, which will permanently give you disadvantages, but also rewards you with another perk. This risk-reward system is a pretty fun way of role-playing a character even more. Fallout has tried this stuff in the past with the likes of addictions, but these could just be removed at any point. And that's not to mention that leveling up was a bit of a mess in general in Fallout 4. Rather than the old skill and perk system of old, Fallout 4 decided to try something new. This new system did not go down well though, and it ended up alienating a lot of the fanbase. Number 6, snappier responsive combat. Combat is not a focus of either of these franchises, but shooting definitely feels more satisfying in the Outer Worlds. This is essential because no matter how you choose to play, you're going to be getting into a lot of fights. Although shooting itself is fairly standard aim and shoot stuff, the ability to use tactical time dilation lifts combat above other games in the genre. Importantly, the Outer Worlds also features the ability to dodge in mid-air. This boost in any direction makes combat much faster and more involved, as well as finally making melee seem like a viable option against gun-wielding enemies. Overall, combat is fun enough that it doesn't drag during the game's 20 to 40 hour campaign, even in the later sections of the adventure when you're getting into even more firefights. Compare this to the end of Fallout 4, where the more the action ramped up, the more of a chore it all became to get through, and there's a distinct winner. Number 5. Tactical time dilation. Although the inspiration is pretty clear, tactical time dilation is one of the best aspects of the Outer Worlds combat. Now, nobody is being fooled. TTD is almost laughably similar to Fallout's own VATS. Slowing down gameplay is hardly specific to Fallout, but considering how close the two are already, it's worth pointing out why this comes out on top. Rather than just letting you pause time and get near guaranteed hits, tactical time dilation lets you keep actively involved in combat. There's no pause and win here, even if some of the damage that you can do with the meter and targeted shots can be obscene. It also feels a lot more balanced because it isn't directly linked to an AP meter, meaning that you're not choosing between this and sprinting. Although it was always satisfying to land a headshot in VATS, it just doesn't compare to what is essentially first-person bullet time. Compared to Fallout 4's weird approach to slowing things down whilst maintaining on-screen percentages and calculations, the Outer Worlds is way more confident. Number 4, it's not overstuffed. In a gaming landscape full of 100-hour adventures and endless side quests, the Outer Worlds is thankfully compact. If you want to see and do everything in Halcyon, you're looking at around 30 to 40 hours of gameplay. Just going through the story can be as fast as 15 hours if you really want it to be, but the times will vary depending on how much side content you want to mop up. Although that may sound lackluster, nothing here feels pointless. Every character has a reason to exist, and every quest has a beginning and end. You won't be finding any random Minutemen-style quests to kill a number of enemies for no reason, just as an example. This lends itself well to another outstanding goal of the Outer Worlds: replayability. With such a brief overall game completion time, it's much more tempting to give it another go as a completely different character just to see what will happen. Fallout 4 felt like it was given near endless content because that's just what the formula demanded. Rather than telling good stories or being consistently rewarding, the minimap was just full of stuff, losing that sense of through-line engagement that encourages you to actually see any of it. Number 3, sharp and funny writing with plenty of personality. There was a time when Fallout was witty, memorable, and punchy. Things that kinda transferred over to Fallout 3, came back massively thanks to Obsidian on development duties with New Vegas, then fell away altogether in the miasma of ideas that was Fallout 4. In Outer Worlds, that idea of writing being at the forefront of the experience is back, giving us a script that's rapier sharp and legitimately hilarious. Whether it be Parvati's small-town girl reactions to the evils of mega-corporations, or your ability to shut down basically any living person, all of the dialogue in the game is incredibly charming. There are even a ton of awesome one-liners in your potential dialogue responses that are infinitely more well done than the nebulous sarcasm option in Fallout 4. A lot of encounters feel extra special because it's you that's setting them up. Just go visit the Spacer's Choice vendor on the Groundbreaker and nag him about his hat. You'll see what I mean. Fallout 4's wit hasn't run dry, but it doesn't feel anywhere near as strong or as personable as it once was. Number 2, characters are better written. Much has been made of Obsidian's ability to write interesting characters in the past, and thankfully that makes a return in the Outer Worlds. Every single character here is written to the point where even if they're trying to sell you something, they feel believable as humans in this world. This applies to how you are written too. No matter which type of response that you go for, all are incredibly sharp. There's a level of depth to thought processes and interactions across the Outer Worlds that just wasn't there in Fallout 4. It's one of the things that made Fallout New Vegas so memorable, and is part of why that particular spin-off is regularly cited as the best in the franchise after Fallout 2. Besides a few of the more interesting companions, who can you actually remember from Fallout 4? The most iconic entities are a dog that never speaks and a company logo that never makes an appearance. And number 1, endless choice. Obsidian made the bold promise that you can play however you want in the Outer Worlds, and somehow they managed to live up to it. Want to go about Halcyon killing every single NPC you come across? Well, that's a slightly demented option, but you totally can. Want to play it as safe as possible and try to unite the colonies together? That ambitious goal is also entirely possible if you go about questing the right way. Your adventure can be massively different in a bunch of key areas, and Outer Worlds doesn't limit you in any regard. If you want to stumble through the cosmos, killing, conniving, making deals, and then making good in the end because you learned how to have a conversation, have at it. By contrast, Fallout 4 felt extremely limited in the choices it allowed you to make. True role-playing didn't really feel like part of the game at all, and it felt more like an open-world first-person shooter with light RPG elements. The Outer Worlds, though, it makes every other RPG right now look rigid as hell. At least, that's what I think. Let me know your thoughts on The Outer Worlds versus Fallout 4 down in the comments below. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com, and I'll catch you soon.